It is 5:30, so I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee. Today is Tuesday, May 6th, and we are in the council chambers. First item of business is the election of chair, so I will open up nominations for our chair. Mr. O'Reilly?
I will nominate Rebecca Spiros for chair.
I'll second.
Do we have any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? Seeing none, we do have a motion by Mr. O'Reilly and a second by Mr. Coran to elect Alderperson Spiros as our chair. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mrs. Spiros.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on to number 3, election of a vice chair. Is there anybody who wants to nominate anyone?
I'll nominate Mr. Coran.
All right, we have a nomination for Mr. Coran. Do we have
I'll second.
we have a
that.
second? Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, with that, we will close the nominations and cast a unanimous ballot to elect Mr. Coran as vice chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Seeing none. Okay, congratulations. Okay, number 4, identify potential conflicts of interest. Seeing none, we'll move on. Citizens' comments. Citizens' comments. Third time, citizens' comments. There are no citizens, so we'll keep going. 6, consent agenda. Minutes of the April 15th, 2025 meeting, bills and payroll, monthly position control report, and report of personnel actions. Those have been in your packet. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions by the committee? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Seeing none. We'll skip over number 7 because there was nothing removed. Number 8, request to recommend council approval of budget resolution number 15-2025, transferring $2,800 in donations received from grants to cover the cost of providing 2 portable toilets for use at the UWSP Marshfield Fields and Forest Ridge Park, presented by Jennifer Zielinski, Finance Director. Jennifer.
Good evening. I'm not sure what more I could add to that great introduction. This is unanticipated revenue, so therefore it's not in the budget. So what this budget resolution will do would be to authorize the spending of the $2,800 in grants that we have received. So with that, I would ask for your approval of a budget resolution 15-2025 for $2,800 for the specific use of the portable toilets.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Move to approve.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Seeing none. Number 9, request to recommend council approval of revised policy number 3-960, personal protective equipment, tool replacement, and clothing allowance, presented by Sarah Dressel, Human Resources. Sarah?
Good evening, everyone. So this is a policy that was last revised in October of 2020. At that time, there were quite a few updates that were made. As part of the 2024 budget process, we did look at 2025 spending, and the fire chief and I discussed uniform allowance, and he did take into account for this year bumping up the allocated amount for uniforms from 500 to 650. And I kind of provided some information in the packet around kind of why, with costs and things like that, the $500 just wasn't sustaining what was needed. And Previously, I believe, when it first occurred, where we put the 500 in the budget for both PD and fire, it was at 500 for both. PD did at one time increase theirs to the 650. And then again, looking at costs and everything, we are recommending approving the adjustment to that group. So I'm recommending the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee recommend Common Council approval of the updated policy 3.960 for the clothing allowance amount, moving it to 650.
All right, thank you,
I'll make a
Sarah.
motion to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, we're quiet tonight. Okay, seeing that we have no questions and we have a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Pose like sign? Seeing none. 10, presentation, recruiting films presented by Sarah Dressel, Human Resources Director.
So far to walk now.
Okay, so I wanted to do a brief presentation. This was requested previously, so let me, just to kind of give an update on some of our open positions and give a brief overview. So with that, here are our current open positions. So we have Community Development Director, that was not budgeted for 2025. City Planner, that is fully budgeted for 2025. Public Works Director, that was budgeted as of March of 2025. Civil Engineer, that was budgeted as of June this year, so upcoming. Equipment Operator 1, there have been 2 vacancies. One was not budgeted for 2025. And then our firefighter paramedic, we had 4 vacancies, 2 budgeted for 2025, and then 2 budgeted for January 2026, now that the referendum has passed. So with that, we'll kind of go into a little bit more information on those positions. But first, we'll kind of talk a little bit about like what recruitment looks like internally, just to kind of give a brief overview. So you'll kind of see some slight differences between what we do for a department or a division head and then what we do for like a salary exempt or non-exempt or an hourly position. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about the differences as we go through it, but with all of these positions, if we have an opening, we generally always look at that job description just to see if there's any updates, changes, anything like that. If there's a significant amount of changes, what we're going to do is we're going to bring those forward to this group, ask for permission to send those to McGrath. We would typically only do that if we're seeing like major changes. So maybe now they supervise someone, or maybe they took on a new computer system, things like that. The next thing would be requesting that backfill. For a division or a department head, we're going to come before this group again and ask for approval here and then Common Council approval to backfill that position. If it's for any of those other positions, we're typically having the department head or division head request it on a backfill form, and then it's going before myself and Steve for approval to backfill. Once it's approved, we post that position. What we do is typically we're posting it for sure on our website, we're posting it on Indeed, and then we're posting it to like job boards that are specific to the job. So for example, a lot of our public works jobs, we're posting that on APWA, which is more specific to like public works types of positions. So once we do that, we do social media, all of that. We work with Tom and David from communications on that as well. So once it's posted, we're hoping that we get applicants. Once we get applicants, we're hoping we can do interviews, job offers, all of those things. If we do have a job offer, and we're coming to this body as well to make sure that the offer is fair for a department head or a division head. And then internally for those other ones, we're just making sure we're following policy. So that is kind of our recruitment steps. Again, if we're looking at these positions, with all 4 of these open positions, I should mention, we're making progress with our fire department positions, and we're also making progress with our street positions, with the equipment operator positions. So I won't really deep dive into those. But with development services and public works, obviously, we've had several campaigns for some of these positions, but again, they're currently vacant positions. So issues with recruiting, really some of the issues are, we've talked about before. There's a really competitive labor market. We come up against the private sector. We come up against larger municipalities that can really offer sometimes more of a salary or different benefits that we can't offer. And so, we run up against that. We also run up against really limited branding and outreach, meaning we utilize what we can with our recruitment tools that we have, but we're really only reaching people who are actively seeking roles. We're not reaching those passive, candidates that, with the right opportunity, they might be interested. So we're limited there a little bit. Also, too, sometimes the hiring process can be a little bit lengthy, depending on if we need approvals, things like that. Sometimes we can miss out on candidates who just get that quick of a offer, and they're scooped up before we have an opportunity. Lastly, just low unemployment rate. In March, to give an example, Wisconsin's unemployment rate was at 3.2%, which is lower than the national rate, which is at about 4.2%. So it does impact us when we're doing some recruiting. So overall, having a prolonged vacancy, to give a little bit of an overview, for city planner, that's been vacant since October of 2022. Civil engineer's been vacant since April of 2023. The community development director, vacant on and off since about April of 2022. And then the director of public works, vacant since October of 2024. So really what that does, obviously, some of the things are, there's potential operational inefficiencies, possible lost economic opportunities. There's definitely financial implications, and then a strain on the current staff. So I think everyone can kind of see and feel all of those. So some strategies. I think first we need to determine really what are our hiring priorities with those 4 positions, and then reviewing what budget we kind of have. What job boards do we want to use? Do we want to pay for some job boards? Do we want to attend some job fairs? Do we want to add things like a relocation assistance for the right candidate? And then also, we want to probably look at, do we want to look at a recruiting firm to assist us in the hiring process? So recruiting firms, just to kind of dive into that a little bit, we've typically used, I would say, a retained recruiter in the past. But what a recruiting firm can do is they can provide us with access to a different talent pool. So they have the passive candidates and they have the people that are actively looking, but they just have a larger Rolodex, essentially, that they can pull upon for candidates. Sometimes they can fill faster for us because they do have those candidates that are ready to pop into positions. They're also really, really good at screening employees, kind of weeding out people that just aren't, they don't have the ability to complete that job. But they're also very experienced in any compliance issues, like making sure that it's a smooth process for everybody. And then again, just an improved candidate selection, there's usually just more for us to choose from as far as a candidate for a position. But there really are 2 kinds of recruiting firms that we can choose from if we decide to go that route. The first is a contingency recruitment, and that would really be for our mid-level positions. So kind of those positions that aren't director level, things like that. What that is we would seek out firms that are qualified to be able to find those people for those positions. They would seek out those candidates. They would help with some of the screening. And then once we made an offer and had an accepted offer and a start, then they would charge us a fee. So typically fees range from 20 to 25% of the first year's salary. of that candidate, so it varies a little bit. But again, there are some guarantees with that. If it's not successful at a certain amount of time, there's some money that you can sometimes get back, or they'll do another round of interviewing, things like that. So that's contingency recruitment. And then we have the retained recruitment or the executive search, which we're used to. We've done that before here, where we're paying basically a retainer fee, and they're doing the whole process start to finish. There's guarantees as well, but it's kind of more of an upfront fee. And it's mostly due to the level that that position is at and the amount of time that an effort that they're going to put into that search. So if we look at civil engineer and city planner, for example, that would probably fall more under a contingency recruitment type of situation, where it would be 20 to 25% of the first year's salary. And again, it's really just the base that they're looking at for that cost. So that could be anywhere between 20 to 24,000 for each of those positions as a cost if we were to successfully fill those roles. Right now, and this is purely just on salary, not on benefits or anything like that, because we haven't been able to fill the city planner position so far this year, just in salary, we're kind of around the 28,400 mark of savings. Nothing for the civil engineer because that's not budgeted until June. So if that would be a position that we would start looking for now, we probably wouldn't fill it before June anyways, but there's no savings there as of right now. So steps for filling the role for them, again, would just be doing an agreement with them, having them search for it, and then going through the normal steps of the recruitment process. A retained recruitment would, again, be for that community development director or the public works director positions. Again, there's that upfront retainer fee, but that would probably, the last time that we did one for a community development director, it was about 21,000 that we had spent on that. So just kind of somewhere between 20 and 30, depending on where things are at now. It's been some time since we've done one of those types of recruitments. We do have the upcoming study that is going to be happening around economic development that I think Steve, could touch on. But I think through that you could, potentially see where should we go with those positions. So I think, we can wait to kind of see for that role. I like to talk about this because I think, we all kind of, know these things, but the return on investment in filling some of these positions, this is just a brief description of some of the reasons why it would be a good thing to fill some of these roles. I think service continuity, just being able to better service citizens, better complete projects, that service continuity is really important. I think there's legal and compliance risks when we don't have someone full-time in position. We might be missing something. We might not be touching on things that need to be touched. So, you would reduce those risks. Improve retention, really, you're looking at if there's less strain on the current staff because now more people are available to do work and then more work can be taken on. It does improve retention. Potentially increase revenue generation with grants or other revenue sources. They would have time and effort and energy to dedicate to looking into some of those things. Potentially faster project completion. We have more control when we do things internally than sometimes we have when we're working with a contractor. And then improve strategic planning and innovation. That person or persons would have the ability to look more at long-term goals versus just the short-term things that we need to take care of right away. So just some of the things that would be steps. I think, from this group, I would like to hear kind of what your feelings are on which jobs we should concentrate on, discussion a little bit around what budget we would be willing to spend. My recommendations would be for the city planner and the civil engineer. We've tried, I would say, everything that we can try internally to fill those roles, and we've been unsuccessful. I think if we want to move in the direction of filling those roles, it would be a good idea for us to move forward with a contingency type situation where we would have agencies looking for candidates and only pay if we were to fill those roles. Other roles, I think, Steve can jump in if he would like to, but I think those would be, further discussion for us. So I'll kind of open it up to discussion and questions and we can go from there.
Thank you, Sarah. Just hang on around up there, I guess. All right, so we're going to open this up for questions or suggestions.
I think one thing we have to keep in mind is with our city planner, we're paying someone 10 hours a week at $149 an hour, which can be up to $70,000 a year. So I mean, that's money we can retain and actually get a full-time person to help. And I think that's one key thing we should keep in mind. And I also agree that a city planner and an engineer are paramount, and they've been open for long enough.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I would agree with what was just said. My difficulty on prioritizing these is I don't know, we're not working inside City Hall, so what would be a priority, a planner, engineer? In my opinion, just from what I know, I think a planner would be very important to get, but I don't know what kind of a deficit we have in the engineering department, so I would kind of lean on staff to give more information on that.
Brian, do you have anything? Okay. How about on this side of the room?
I'll just say that I think that the real issue, and I would add to what Sarah said, although I think she kind of hinted at it pretty strongly, is what we're at right now is kind of more reactive mode. I mean, we're hanging in there, but we're not able to do proactive things. If you had a city planner, you could be doing some long-term planning, maybe looking at major things that really need to be done to the zoning code or the subdivision ordinance. If you had a community development director, you'd have somebody actively out there, seeking companies, working with employers. Most of what we're doing right now, and it's a group of people, including Jennifer and me and Josh Moritz. Lois is on that team as well. Josh Miller as our economic development consultant, really just trying to respond to inquiries that come our way, opportunities that we become aware of, as opposed to going out proactively. So, I mean, it's hard to put, a value on that. I mean, are we hanging in there? Yeah. Are we moving forward in a meaningful way? Probably not the way we could. So how do you take that and put a priority on it? I think the city planner is one of the most important things we need. That's not to discount a community development director. My reason for not putting in the budget the community development director position for 2025 was partly financial. Obviously, we're struggling financially, and it was hard to make the budget work. But the thought that the cobbling of the business development director position at Mackey, some consulting help from Cedar Corporation, Utilities was talking about maybe an economic development person at that point. I haven't heard that lately. But the thought that maybe we could get by, and then some support from me as well. And I think that works for a while. I don't know if that works long term. I'm not sure how many communities our size, go very long without a community development director. So ultimately, I think all the positions that Sarah was highlighting are important. Prioritizing them, you can kind of bend a little bit one way or the other.
Anything else? So I'll just do a couple of things that I did notice, maybe some things we could talk about and maybe some things we could change at this level. The lengthy hiring process, I think that could be discussed. I don't like to lose candidates just because it takes us too long. That is inexcusable, in my opinion. So we would be looking for maybe some suggestions to come out from you guys regarding the hiring process. The limited branding and outreach, it's not working, right? We've had these positions open for so long. So we have to change that up. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm not an HR person. I don't want to pretend to be. But somehow we've got to do something different. And I think if it costs us some money, it costs us some money because the return on investment is there. My personal opinion is these positions have been empty a long time. I've seen it weighing on the remaining staff. I've seen, evidence of the assignments being too large for the amount of staff we have left. So I think at this point we have to make some definitive choices, not tonight maybe, but we're going to have to rely more heavily on the two of you, the three of you, whatever team you want to put together, actually. And we have to do something different because we have to get at least one of these major positions hired. like, it's just necessary. I think we're losing opportunities. And when you lose opportunities, you lose revenue. So I would like to discuss the hiring process. I'd like you to come up with something briefer, quicker, whether that's cutting the amount of people down, having people available for special meetings, special interviews, whatever it is. I mean, I would like you to look at that closer because we can definitely control and change that, in my opinion. As far as limited branding and outreach, Sarah, I would probably put that on you, for you to come with some concrete ideas and cost attached to those. And if we can talk about that, maybe in the next, maybe not the next meeting, but, give you a little bit of time, maybe, in a month or so, 6 weeks, whatever it takes. But we have to get moving. And if we have to spend money to do it, then that's painful, but necessary, in my opinion. So, all right. Anything else? Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. I like where you're going. I like the comments. Oh my gosh, don't touch the microphone, Steve. The comments that you're making. I do want to add one more thing, and not to make us feel better, because it probably won't work, but we're not alone. The market has really been challenging in recent years. When I go to conferences and seminars, I hear that many other communities are having a hard time finding some of the very same positions. The private sector has gotten more competitive. And for whatever reason, whether it was COVID, people taking early retirement or whatever, there are not as many planners, for example, out there as used to be. That doesn't help. We have to do everything we possibly can. I totally agree with you. I just wanted to make the note that we're not alone.
Go ahead.
Does it make sense to at least start this process with the city planner to get a contingency-based company in to start looking for people, because it's going to take so long? Because even if we approve it at this meeting, it has to go to council. We approve it there, and if there's debate, and if we push this off to the next meeting, I mean, we're talking roughly 3 to 4 weeks before we get any movement. And if we really want to fill this position, can we start with one? Can we start with the city planner, get some funding if it's a contingency fee of $20,000 to $25,000, at least start this process, because we're still going to be utilizing a consultant. No, I can't do that.
No, because it's for informational,
Okay.
the agenda says for information, but we
Okay.
could certainly bring it up at the next council meeting.
Okay,
It doesn't have to wait for finance and budget.
okay.
That's my opinion. It does not have to wait for finance and budget.
Well, that's very true. We could put that on the council agenda for next Tuesday if you'd like.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I do feel an urgency, like basically what you're saying, and so I'm fine with it being on the council agenda.
Great.
And I mean, I think you both said city planner was your number one. So, and I see
I think it
Jennifer
is.
shaking her head too. So
I think it is, and part of the reason was already called up by Councilmember Coran, and that is that we are spending a good chunk of money on a consulting firm now to provide the services. So there's an offset there that we'd be working with in terms of trying to land that person.
I just have a weird question. Is there a comparable position to the title city planner that we may be missing out on? Somebody who basically, who sort of does the same thing, but maybe doesn't actually have the degree, city planning or urban development or whatever it is, the degree that they get, I'm not even sure. But is there anything comparable that we aren't looking at?
Do you have any thoughts on that, Steve?
I don't. We could take a look at what other communities have for their organizational structure and see if they have something that, typically most communities have, and we had it for a while ourselves, a community development director, a different title, and then a planner, and then maybe an associate planner, someone who handles some of the zoning, the minor things. But I'm always used to seeing a position called something very similar to city planner, but then it's all in the job description too. We can maybe find out what other communities have out there.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
I have no idea. I was just maybe throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this topic? All right. So we'll look for that on the Common Council agenda for Tuesday. And Sarah, just bring us what you have time to get ready before then. All right, number 11, suggested items for future agendas beside what we just discussed. No. Okay, so I'm going to bring up something, and I don't know if this is a future agenda. Well, sort of is. So we are going to be doing budget planning in a few months. And I think that it's a good time for us to try to establish what method of budget planning we want to go through. And by that, I mean, I'm thinking that we need to get a little bit more specific with what we're looking for and what we think we're going to do with the budget. So that could be questions for specific departments or questions for department-wide. Because we have a lot of new, well, we have one brand new council person, but we also have a couple that have only been here one budget cycle and maybe was even brought in the middle of a budget cycle. So it can be a really confusing thing. So I think just putting 10 heads together or 5 or whatever, however we want to put this, and coming up with some process that's workable and understandable, so that we're not all wanting to see budget cuts and knowing we need budget cuts, but sitting here silently because we're not sure what to say or do. And that's what I think happens. So try to start thinking that through, and we'll put that not on next times because I think people need some time, but maybe in 4 weeks from now. And Steve, your input, anybody's input, not just the people sitting up here.
That sounds great.
Anything else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We are adjourned.